All right, so we are out on an aerobic septic system, and is this a drip system? I could see all the manifold over here. Is this a spray system?
No, this is actually an aerobic drip system.
Aerobic drip. All right, so the pump went out on this one, and this one actually called for a mid-suction effluent pump. So the last one we did in the previous video was a bottom suction. Now, why would a manufacturer recommend a mid-suction over a bottom suction pump?
So it comes down to the engineer's specifications. This pump, between this pump and the bottom suction pump that we did in the last video, the pump curve is the same. Okay. Now the main difference is going to be on the bottom suction pump. I don't know if you guys remember, but the intake is down here at the bottom.
Right.
And so either one, you could leave it that way, or what we did in the last one is we added a piece of 3-inch PVC pipe at the bottom of that pump to go ahead and raise it up off the ground and get it out of that sludge that does accumulate in the pump tank.
Right.
And so as you can see on this one, on this midsection, you don't need to put that PVC stand at the bottom. The midsection pump, it's already, it's halfway up the pump, so you're already getting that elevation that you need.
Right.
Now there are some manufacturers out there that do make these pumps, and the pump curve is way higher.
Okay.
And so the important part on that one is going to be the engineer will specify, because of the distance and the elevation from the tank to the field.
Right.
Or spray heads.
Okay.
So that's one of the big differences on these midsection pumps. So again, on the midsection pumps, there are manufacturers out there where the pump curve is higher, and you'll want to put those pumps in where the elevation is high and the distance is long.
Right. Okay. So like, just say somebody went to like Harbor Freight or something, and they were trying to replace a pump, it's not going to do what it needs to do, right?
Exactly. Yeah. So you always want to make sure that if the plans are available through the county website, everything's public record, or it should be. Always try to make sure you follow the designer's specifications. If not, call your local municipality, like here would be Travis County, LCRA, City of Austin, and ask them based on the type of system what would they recommend. But basically, that's the main difference between the bottom section and the mid section. Obviously, the mid section is a lot higher, but again, you can get some midsection pumps with a higher pump curve to get enough water out up the because of elevation or field size.
Okay. Yeah. And in the last video, you were replacing it. We had to run conduit and go to a splice box, but this panel box is going directly into the tank, so you're going to have to go straight from the bottom of the tank up.
Yeah, that's correct. So some of these tanks, the manufacturer, like the concrete companies, they'll actually put they'll embed a 1/4-inch coupling within the concrete, and that allows for tank mount. So all that determines whether you want it tank mounted or mounted on the house or off to the side is going to be customer preference. But if in this case you can see it's tank mounted, so there's actually no splice box or no junction box in the tank. We're actually going to have to use the existing wires from the float and fish the pump float, alarm float, and the pump wire, down and up.
Okay.
Into the panel, and then all the wiring will be in the panel. So it's got its benefits.
Okay. All right, so we're gonna get to it now.
All right, all the power's off. All right, so first things first. So you want to make sure all the breakers are off. You don't want to get shocked while you're doing this.
That's always what I'm worried about.
Yeah. All right, so we only need one of these, so I can fish this one all the way through. What I like to do is always put a knot in there. That way, if it accidentally goes, it won't fall all the way through.
Yeah.
And all right. So I've got that. This pump, this is the old alarm float, which no longer works because it's cracked. It got moisture in it, and then and so the alarm was going off whether the float was up or down. So what we're going to be putting in today is, so now Aider, they do have at Wholesale Septic, you can get an Aider pump float and also an Aider alarm float. And the difference is, I think we've discussed it in the last video, is your pump float is going to be a wide angle, meaning the travel is higher on this one for it to actually activate the pump, versus on the alarm float the travel is much more narrow, and that way you get the high water alarm, you know, sooner than later. So, but and then of course they're color coordinated, so you can't mess it up. And they come with a 5-year warranty from.
That's always a plus. You can tell he's been doing this a while. I'd have to go to the hospital.
Don't jinx me now. All right. So as you can see, what I did there is I basically just opened the casing, right, and take out about 6 inches of the old wire. And now what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to put it in the casing there. My electrical tape. All right, now I'll get the next one.
And you're just trying to make everything super compact, that way it can slide right up there, right, and not get caught up on anything.
Yeah, exactly. So if you notice, what I'm coming down, so I've got the first cable, the first wire for the pump float on up here, right? And then for the next one, the alarm float, I go down a little bit. Does that make sense?
Yep.
So you've got 2 wires that you have to fish through, right? So I'll go down like that. And then, excuse me, let me grab that. Hand me the wire for the pump there. And for the pump, I'll come down a little bit. Put it in the old casing. Because if you try to bundle them all up and all 3 together, which you can, depending on the conduit size, this is 3/4 inch conduit. It's going to be a lot harder to pull all 3 if you tape them all together.
Right.
But if you stagger them like this, once you're in, you can pull it. Try to go as tight as you can. Have to remove those labels. Okay. All right, someone drop that. Pull it up. And there we go.
And there it is.
Yep. So I've got it pulled. All right. All right. That's our wire, our whole foot. All right. So I'm gonna start removing the casing on these so we can wire everything inside the panel. My alarm float. A, and my pump float. P.
And are you labeling those for the next time something happens?
One, next time something happens, and two, so I know where which wires go where in the panel, because in the panel you've got a designated spot for the alarm float, the pump, and any additional floats, like for instance an override float.
It's hot. Yeah, it is.
All right. Yeah, so I'll label them. That way I know what's going where inside the panel. Because inside the panel you have multiple terminals. Everything from the air compressor to the alarm float and the pump. So you don't want to get those mixed up. If you get the pump float and the alarm float mixed up, well then your alarm's going to sound first before the pump even starts, and then you'll get a call back and saying, hey, my alarm keeps going off. Yeah. So it's important to go ahead and get everything labeled. So now that I know that's my alarm float, so once you've gotten these screws tightened down, it's important just go ahead and give it a little tug and make sure that you're securely in there.
This reminds me of when I was a kid trying to hook up as many speakers to my stereo as I could.
All right, so once you get everything wired in the panel, what I like to do before you get the floats tied onto the pump stand is go ahead and grab them, make sure everything's on, and go ahead and test everything. Just make sure so there's your alarm float, and then we'll activate our pump float, and you can hear the pump running. I'm going to turn everything off. So the first one we're going to tie on is going to be our pump float. Anything 4 to 5 inches. I always like to go just 4 fingers, but like that. And my go-to is going to be always electrical tape. Seems to always hold up pretty good.
Yeah, I've seen people use anything from zip ties, the stainless steel clamps.
Yes.
Have you followed up on anything and seen, like some of those that fell off or something?
Yeah, the zip ties will fall off. For some reason, the gases in these tanks will make everything real brittle. Same thing with the steel hose clamps.
Yep.
It'll deteriorate that metal and they'll just break off. So, which is not the end of the world, but you may get a phone call about the alarm coming on, and you get there and all it is the alarm float has fallen off. So, get this a little closer. We're just going to tie this guy on there. Okay. Now I'll mess with the alarm float. The alarm float, same thing. You can do 4 fingers. Alright, so we have everything on. Before we stick everything back in, go ahead and check it one more time. There's our pump, and there's our float. And there's a good example of what I'm talking about as far as the wide angle and narrow angle. So you can see how high that has to go up for it to activate the pump versus your alarm float.
Oh yeah.
You see that difference?
Mm-hmm.
So it's almost horizontal versus this one having to have much more travel. So that's what you want. So it is important to make sure you have the right floats in there. Like to make sure you bundle all your wires together. That way they're just not dangling down there at the bottom. If you allow them to dangle or just fall freely, your floats can get tangled up in them and then not activate.
I've seen that before.
Yeah. Okay.
That's it.
And that's pretty much it. So everything's connected.
So once that pump tank starts filling up, it's gonna hit that switch, kick on the pump, go out into the field. If something ever happens in the future, it'll work its way up to that alarm float, the high water alarm, and send off this siren and let the homeowner know that they need to call somebody out here quickly, or else they're gonna have a lagoon back here.
That's right. Yeah, so that's why it's important to use the right float. You got your pump float and you got the alarm float. Again, it's not the end of the world if you don't have an alarm float handy, but using that narrow angle alarm float, you get that early warning.
Right, because what that means is, okay, so maybe you're at about, how high is that? Like about halfway up, that alarm float?
Yeah, about halfway up. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so I mean, every couple inches that goes up, that's more and more gallons that are gonna fill up in this tank. So that gives you less time before it starts overflowing, basically. So it's better to catch that sooner than later. So we just put in the Aider SK20. This is distributed by WholesaleSepticSupply.com. They're really good folks out of Texas, which is a plus. And the good thing about them is they are actually involved in the septic industry. They installed septics, they pump out septics. So anytime you call them with questions, they're available to answer. I mean, there's been several times where I've called them up and said like, hey, I'm dealing with this issue, like what would you recommend? And they even walk me through it. So I'm thankful to them for sponsoring the video, and I'm also thankful to John. He's one of the most knowledgeable people I know out there. He's super organized. He's really good at explaining what to do, how to do it. I mean, when I first got into this industry, I was just pumping. So I'm barely now getting into installations, the pump repairs, pump replacements, panel boxes, all that stuff. So I'm really glad to know people in the industry that I can look to for advice and how to do things the right way, because I want to be doing this for a long time, and I want to be doing it right. So thanks, bud.
Sure thing, Dom.
And remember,
smells like money.
hell yeah.